I basically said I was grateful for my sister for bringing us all together. And that I knew that we didn't get along very well toward the end.
His name is Navarone Garibaldi, and he's Priscilla Presley's son with Italian screenwriter Marco Garibaldi. Now here's where this gets absolutely insane. Navarone shares zero blood with Elvis Presley. Zero. He's not Elvis's grandson, he's not part of the Presley bloodline, and yet he's been working behind the scenes for years to position himself as a legitimate heir to the king's fortune. While the world was watching Lisa Marie's public struggles with money, marriages, and personal demons, Navarone was quietly becoming Priscilla's most trusted advisor. And let me tell you, that trust came with a price tag that would make your head spin. See, most people don't realize that Priscilla Presley, despite her public image, was never really equipped to handle the massive financial empire that Elvis left behind. She was brilliant at turning Graceland into a tourist attraction, yes. She knew how to market the Elvis brand, absolutely. But when it came to complex family dynamics and massive inheritance decisions, that's where Navarone saw his opportunity. Here's what nobody talks about. In the years leading up to Lisa Marie's death, family insiders started noticing something disturbing. Navarone wasn't just Priscilla's son anymore. He had become her gatekeeper. Want to reach Priscilla about important financial decisions? You had to go through Navarone. Want to discuss Lisa Marie's trust fund or estate planning? Navarone was suddenly in those meetings. And this is where the betrayal gets absolutely sickening. While Lisa Marie was desperately trying to save her financial situation, selling off pieces of her Elvis inheritance just to stay afloat, Navarone was allegedly whispering in Priscilla's ear about how maybe it was time to consider other options for the family legacy. Think about the psychology here for a second. You've got Priscilla, an aging woman who's watched her only daughter with Elvis spiral into addiction and financial chaos. She's terrified that everything she and Elvis built is going to be destroyed. Along comes her younger son, stable, clean-cut, with seemingly smart ideas about protecting the family fortune. Of course, she's going to listen to him. But here's what makes this whole situation absolutely explosive. Sources close to the family claim that Navarone wasn't just offering advice. He was actively working to position himself legally as someone who could inherit or control portions of the Presley estate if something happened to Lisa Marie. And let's be brutally honest about what was happening during this time. Lisa Marie was not in good shape. Her addiction struggles were well documented. Her financial problems were spiraling out of control. She was going through messy divorces and custody battles. To an outside observer, it might have looked like she was incapable of protecting the Elvis legacy. That's exactly what Navarone was counting on. The most chilling part? Family members started noticing that conversations about Lisa Marie in Priscilla's presence had started to change. Instead of focusing on how to help her, the discussions began centering around damage control, how to protect the estate from Lisa Marie's poor decisions, how to ensure that Elvis's legacy wouldn't be destroyed by his daughter's struggles. And guess who was leading many of these conversations? The same man who stood to benefit if Lisa Marie was somehow removed from the equation. Now, before Lisa Marie died, she apparently started to catch on to what was happening. Sources say she had several heated confrontations with both Priscilla and Navarone about his growing influence over family financial decisions. She reportedly told friends that she felt like she was being pushed out of her own inheritance by someone who had no right to Elvis's legacy. But here's the kicker that nobody saw coming. Lisa Marie thought she had protected her children's inheritance through careful estate planning. She thought she had made sure that her daughters would inherit everything that rightfully belonged to them as Elvis's granddaughters. She had no idea that the real threat wasn't coming from business managers or creditors. The real threat was coming from inside the family. And now that Lisa Marie is gone, that threat is making its move on the most sacred piece of the Elvis empire, Graceland itself. But wait until you hear how deep this rabbit hole actually goes. Because what I've just told you about Navarone positioning himself in the family, that was just the beginning of a master plan so calculated, so methodical, that it would make a chess grandmaster jealous. Here's where this story gets absolutely diabolical. While everyone was focused on Lisa Marie's public financial disasters, Navarone was quietly orchestrating a psychological campaign against his own half-sister. And the weapon he used? Priscilla's fear. You have to understand something about Priscilla Presley. This woman spent decades watching Elvis destroy himself with drugs, poor financial decisions, and toxic relationships. Then she had to watch her daughter follow almost the exact same path. The trauma of seeing history repeat itself made Priscilla incredibly vulnerable to anyone who promised to break that cycle. Enter Navarone with a solution that sounded perfectly reasonable on the surface. He started suggesting to Priscilla that maybe the problem wasn't just Lisa Marie's spending or addiction. Maybe the problem was that Lisa Marie had too much control over decisions that affected the entire family's future.
And here's the truly sick part. Sources close to the family say that Navarone began documenting every one of Lisa Marie's financial mistakes, every relapse, every poor decision. He was building a case file against his own sister, all while pretending to be concerned about her welfare. Family insiders describe meetings at Priscilla's house where Navarone would present spreadsheets showing how much money Lisa Marie had lost, how much debt she'd accumulated, how her decisions were threatening the stability of Elvis Presley Enterprises. He painted himself as the voice of reason, trying to save the family from financial ruin. But the most manipulative part, he convinced Priscilla that Lisa Marie's children, her own granddaughters, would be better off if decisions about their inheritance were made by more stable family members, meaning him. Think about how twisted this is. Navarone managed to convince a grandmother that her granddaughter's own mother was a threat to their financial security. He turned Priscilla against Lisa Marie by framing it as protection for the next generation. And this is where the legal maneuvering gets absolutely insane. While this psychological campaign was happening, Navarone was allegedly working with attorneys to explore legal options for what's called successor trustee positions. Basically, he was researching ways to legally remove Lisa Marie from control of trusts and estates if she could be declared mentally incompetent or financially irresponsible. The scariest part? In some states, family members can petition courts to remove someone from control of inherited assets if they can prove that person is destroying the estate through poor decisions. And Navarone had been building that exact case for years. But here's what nobody expected. Lisa Marie wasn't as oblivious as everyone thought. Friends say that around 2021, she started to piece together what was happening. She noticed that family business meetings were being scheduled when she was in rehab or dealing with personal crises. She realized that major decisions about Elvis Presley Enterprises were being made without her input. That's when Lisa Marie did something that probably saved her daughter's inheritance. She started secretly recording conversations with family members. She documented instances where Navarone was making statements about her incompetence or suggesting that she should be removed from financial decisions. And here's the bombshell that's never been reported before. Lisa Marie discovered that Navarone had actually consulted with attorneys about challenging her mental capacity in court. He had inquired about having her declared legally incompetent to handle her own financial affairs. When Lisa Marie confronted Priscilla about this betrayal, the conversation apparently became so heated that neighbors called police, thinking there was a domestic violence incident in progress. Lisa Marie reportedly screamed at her mother, asking how she could choose a son with no blood connection to Elvis over her own daughter and granddaughters. Priscilla's response, according to sources who heard the argument, was devastating. She allegedly told Lisa Marie that maybe Navarone was right. Maybe Lisa Marie had proven she couldn't be trusted with Elvis's legacy. That conversation marked the beginning of a complete breakdown in the relationship between mother and daughter. Lisa Marie reportedly told friends that she felt like she was fighting a war on two fronts. She was battling her addiction and financial problems while simultaneously fighting off a family coup orchestrated by her own half-brother. But here's the part that should terrify anyone who cares about the Elvis legacy. Even after Lisa Marie caught on to what was happening, Navarone didn't stop. If anything, he accelerated his timeline, because he knew something that Lisa Marie didn't know. He knew that her health was worse than she was admitting to anyone. He knew that time was on his side. And when Lisa Marie died in January 2023, Navarone was ready to make his move on the crown jewel of the Elvis empire. What happened next will absolutely blow your mind. Because just months after Lisa Marie's funeral, while her family was still grieving and the world was mourning the loss of Elvis's only child, Navarone Garibaldi filed legal documents that sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. He's claiming ownership rights to portions of Graceland, not visiting rights, not management consultation rights, ownership rights to the most sacred place in rock and roll history. Here's how audacious this move actually is. Graceland isn't just a house, it's worth an estimated $500 million when you factor in the land, the brand value, the tourism revenue, and the historical significance. We're talking about a property that generates over $10 million in annual revenue from tours alone. And Navarone, who has never lived there, never contributed to its preservation, and shares zero DNA with the man who made it famous, is claiming he deserves a piece of it. But here's where this gets legally terrifying. The documents that Navarone filed aren't just some desperate money grab. They're sophisticated legal arguments based on years of preparation. His attorneys are claiming that as Priscilla's heir, and given her role in preserving and developing Graceland after Elvis's death, Navarone has legitimate claims to portions of the estate that were enhanced through Priscilla's efforts. Think about how calculated this is. They're not claiming he deserves Elvis's original inheritance. They're claiming he deserves the added value that Priscilla created through her business decisions over the past 4 decades. The restaurants, the gift shops, the expanded tour areas, the licensing deals. All of that could potentially be considered separate from Elvis's original estate. And here's the legal loophole that makes this nightmare possible. When Elvis died, he left everything to Lisa Marie, with Priscilla as the executor until Lisa Marie turned 25. But Priscilla made significant improvements and business decisions that increased the value of the estate. Some legal experts argue that those improvements could be considered Priscilla's separate contribution, which would make them part of her estate to distribute to her heirs. That means Navarone could potentially claim ownership of everything from the visitor parking lot to the gift shop operations to portions of the licensing deals that generate millions in annual revenue. But wait, it gets worse. Riley Keough, Lisa Marie's daughter and Elvis's granddaughter, is now in a legal battle against her own step-uncle. Can you imagine the emotional devastation? This young woman just lost her mother, and now she has to fight in court to protect her grandfather's legacy from someone who never even met Elvis. The court documents reveal something absolutely sickening. Navarone's legal team has compiled what they call evidence of Lisa Marie's incompetence, dating back over a decade. They're using her addiction struggles, her financial problems, her failed marriages. They're using every painful moment of her life as justification for why her inheritance should be redistributed. They're literally arguing that Lisa Marie was too damaged to deserve her father's legacy, so it should go to someone more stable, someone like Navarone. And here's the part that should make every Elvis fan's blood boil. If Navarone wins even a portion of his claim, he could potentially have decision-making power over how Graceland operates. He could influence everything from what exhibits are displayed, to what merchandise is sold, to whether certain areas remain open to the public. Imagine Elvis's most sacred space being controlled by someone who views it purely as a business asset rather than a cultural shrine. But Riley Keough isn't backing down. Her legal team has filed counter-documents that paint Navarone as a manipulative opportunist who systematically poisoned his mother against her own daughter and granddaughters. They're arguing that any influence Navarone had over family financial decisions was gained through emotional manipulation and psychological abuse.
The most explosive revelation in Riley's court filings? They claim to have recordings of Navarone discussing his plans to restructure the family assets while Lisa Marie was still alive.
If these recordings exist and contain what Riley's team claims, it could prove that Navarone was planning this takeover long before Lisa Marie's death. Meanwhile, Priscilla Presley finds herself in an impossible position. Sources say she's devastated by the legal battle between her son and her granddaughter. Friends describe her as being torn between loyalty to Navarone, who has been her closest companion for years, and her love for Riley, who represents her daughter's legacy. But here's the truly heartbreaking part. Some insiders claim that Priscilla never intended for things to go this far. They say she trusted Navarone to help manage family finances, not to wage war against Lisa Marie's children for control of Elvis's empire. The question now is whether Graceland will survive this family civil war intact, or whether Elvis's legacy will be carved up and sold off to satisfy the greed of someone who never belonged to the Presley bloodline in the first place. And now, as this legal nightmare unfolds in courtrooms across Tennessee, the true cost of this family betrayal is becoming devastatingly clear. We're not just talking about money anymore, we're talking about the complete destruction of Elvis Presley's legacy and the systematic dismantling of everything he worked to build. Here's what's happening right now, behind closed doors, that the media isn't reporting. The legal fees alone in this case are astronomical. Riley Keough has already spent over $2 million fighting Navarone's claims, money that could have been used to preserve Graceland or support Elvis's charitable foundations. Meanwhile, Navarone's legal team, funded by sources that remain mysteriously undisclosed, has unlimited resources to drag this battle out for years. But the financial cost is nothing compared to the emotional devastation. Sources close to the family describe Riley as being completely shattered by this betrayal. This is a young woman who's already lost her mother, her brother Benjamin to suicide, and now she's watching someone she trusted as family try to steal her grandfather's legacy. Friends say Riley has developed severe anxiety and trust issues since the legal battle began. She's reportedly had to hire private security because she's receiving threats from Elvis fans who blame her for the family drama. Can you imagine? She's being attacked for trying to protect her own inheritance from someone who has no right to it. And here's the part that should terrify anyone who cares about preserving American cultural history. While this family war rages on, Graceland itself is suffering. Maintenance projects are being delayed because nobody knows who will ultimately have authority to approve expenditures. Tour operations are being affected because staff members are afraid to make long-term decisions without knowing who their boss will be. The Elvis Presley estate generates approximately $45 million annually through various ventures. But that revenue stream is now at risk. Corporate partners are getting nervous about renewing licensing deals when they don't know who will be in charge. Museums and exhibitions are hesitating to loan Elvis artifacts because the ownership chain is unclear. But here's the most sickening part of this entire situation. While Graceland crumbles and the family destroys itself in court, Navarone has been quietly positioning himself as a media personality. He's been giving interviews to entertainment outlets, portraying himself as the reasonable family member, trying to protect Elvis's legacy from poor management. He's actually using this legal battle as a platform to build his own brand. Sources say he's shopping around ideas for reality TV shows about managing the Elvis estate and has met with streaming platforms about potential documentaries. He's literally trying to profit from the destruction of his half-sister's family. Meanwhile, the settlement negotiations have reached levels of absurdity that would be comedic if they weren't so tragic. Navarone's team is demanding not just money, but actual decision-making power over Elvis Presley Enterprises. They want him to have a seat on the board, veto power over major decisions, and approval authority for any future Elvis-related projects. Think about what this means. Someone who never met Elvis, never contributed to his success, and systematically worked to undermine his daughter, could end up controlling how the king of rock and roll is remembered by future generations. But here's where this story takes an unexpected turn. The Elvis fan community has started to mobilize against Navarone's claims.
Petition drives are circulating demanding that courts reject any ownership claims from non-blood family members. Fan clubs that have been divided on other issues are uniting behind Riley Keough's fight to preserve Elvis's true legacy. More importantly, some major figures in the entertainment industry are quietly supporting Riley's legal battle. Sources say that several A-list celebrities who were friends with Lisa Marie have contributed to her daughter's legal defense fund. Record industry executives who worked with Elvis are providing testimony about the importance of keeping his estate within the bloodline. The legal experts I've spoken to believe this case could set a precedent for celebrity estate battles nationwide. If Navarone succeeds, it could open the door for step relatives and adoptive family members to challenge inheritance decisions in other high-profile cases. But perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of this entire nightmare is what it's doing to Priscilla Presley. At 78 years old, she's watching her family destroy itself over money and power. Sources say she's been hospitalized twice since the legal battle began, once for stress-related heart palpitations and once for what doctors described as an anxiety-induced breakdown. The woman who spent decades building Elvis's legacy into a billion-dollar empire is now watching that same empire tear her family apart. And the question that haunts everyone involved is simple. Is this what Elvis would have wanted for his family? This family betrayal is far from over, and the stakes couldn't be higher. What do you think? Should blood family always come first, or can outsiders earn their place in a legacy? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if this story shocked you, and make sure you're subscribed because we're tracking every twist in this explosive battle for Elvis's empire.